Tonight on 16 by 9, they call it the party pill.
Thursday morning at about 10:25, she died.
But it has deadly consequences. And then, who pays the price for the government's online gamble?
I didn't care if it meant I was going to never see my kids again or go to jail.
Then, could some helmets
They're actually transmitting more energy to the brain and creating a higher risk of injury.
be doing more harm than good? And they're shrill, messy, and demanding. And this woman loves every one of them. Here's Carolyn Jarvis.
Canada has earned a dubious new title. According to a recent UN report, we are now one of the world's top producers of the synthetic drug Ecstasy. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime points to Vancouver as the center for Canadian production, a place where organized criminal groups distribute ecstasy across the country and the world. So, just what is ecstasy? It's a cocktail of many chemicals packaged into a powder or colorful pills. And it's considered the world's #1 party drug. But make no mistake, it is a witch's brew, a destructively potent pill that kills. In Europe, they call Ibiza Ecstasy Island, a holiday hotspot off the coast of Spain where the techno rave scene started, fueled by the drug MDMA, or as it's known on the street, ecstasy. Today, ecstasy is everywhere, from a dance floor in Toronto on a Saturday night to the halls of a Canadian high school. Ecstasy is considered the #1 party drug for all ages.
It's a fun drug. You're having fun. You're loose, you get along with everyone, you're having a good time.
19-year-old Shauna McCormack of Abbotsford, British Columbia says you can buy a pill for as little as a few dollars.
It's very easy. It's easier than getting alcohol or smokes if you're underage.
But Shauna learned firsthand about the darker side of ecstasy. Last Christmas, her younger sister Cheryl overdosed on the drug.
Her eyes were rolled back, her lips were clenched and blue, and she was just shaking. So we called the ambulance and they came and they started putting needles in her and they put a tube down her throat and she's just laying there on the floor, not doing anything. It was like she was trapped in her body.
And you're thinking what?
That I've never seen something like this.
In hospital, Cheryl's condition quickly went from bad to worse.
Her core temperature was 43 and her heart rate was 197. And they had to use the paddles to slow her heart down, and they had ice packs and the cooling blankets and everything trying to cool her down.
Tell me what it was like walking in that room.
Scary. We don't know if she could hear us because she couldn't speak. So we tried talking to her, but,
How long was she with you in that state?
We took her into the hospital Tuesday at about 2:30 in the morning, and Thursday morning at about 10:25 she died.
Cheryl McCormack, dead at only 17 years old.
A family is mourning their 17-year-old daughter after a drug overdose.
Even more troubling, she wasn't the only one. Cheryl was part of a string of deadly ecstasy overdoses that hit BC's Lower Mainland in the summer and fall of 2011. 3 of those deaths struck the Abbotsford area alone. But what stunned Constable Ian McDonald was the reason why Cheryl and her friends were taking the drug.
The view for that pill was that it was going to help them with weight loss. In morning meeting, you go through some tragedies from the previous 12 hours, and it can really run the spectrum. But I can say to a person, you could have heard a pin drop in that room.
Cheryl was an athletic teenager. She had lost 40 pounds and was looking forward to fitting into her graduation dress in only a matter of months.
She looks like a princess.
I know. We didn't know it was as bad as till when she was in the hospital because they said she had really nothing in her system to fight back against the drugs.
Scott Rintoul with the RCMP is an expert on synthetic drugs, and he's watched the use of ecstasy in BC explode.
In the 90s, when we first started our project, ecstasy was going for $20, $25 per tablet back then. And then as the years have passed, the market's become more and more saturated.
What do you mean the market is saturated?
There's a demand for it, and there's a huge supply. When you look at the sort of 1998, when we first started our project, the majority of the ecstasy was being imported from Europe. When you fast forward today, nothing comes from Europe other than precursor chemicals.
Today, Canada is a top producer and exporter of ecstasy. And that often begins here at Vancouver's port, where the ingredients used to make a pill, those precursor chemicals, are smuggled in.
Who are the people making this drug?
Organized crime groups. They invest, and then they're looking at big profits. They may have different people, employees, so to speak, that will get the chemicals. The chemicals will be stored somewhere. And from there, the chemicals are then taken to a laboratory where they'll be produced.
Labs like the one police raided in Burnaby back in February. The basement was an ecstasy cookhouse full of chemicals so toxic, police and chemists had to wear protective hazmat suits. A user can never know the precise makeup of an ecstasy tablet, but in most cases the main component is MDMA, which is made from the oil of the sassafras plant. Figuring out what exactly is in the pill is the job of Health Canada chemist Richard Lang.
We've seen operations where they've actually added paint to tablets. Those kinds of things have inherent hazards that I don't know what they are on an unsuspecting individual. Certainly I wouldn't want to be eating paint.
I've heard these people who concoct these pills, these powders, also referred to as chemists.
We refer to them as cooks. Often they were following a recipe.
And there is nothing glamorous about where they're cooking.
The manufacturing can range considerably from an industrial type setting, which is rare, to somebody who's making it in their backyard or in their bathtub.
You see people making these in their bathtub?
Yes. Yes. And we've actually had labs where you're walking over dog feces and trying to get to the spot where they actually are working on making drugs.
Back at the ecstasy lab in Burnaby, police make 3 arrests.
An ecstasy bust is not typical. And by being rare, it just shows that when they're set up for mass production. There's not a lot of them, but they're producing mass quantities of drugs.
And an essential tool in that production is a pill press. It takes the chemicals from a powder to a pill, and you can find one on the internet for about $5,000.
2,000 and 3,000 pills an hour with this.
Yes, and this will be hooked up. I mean, you can do it manually, but they will hook it up to electrical cord, and it'll just run continuously.
So it just spits out the pills.
Yep.
The final product, shown here in a police handbook, is marketed to look as innocent as candy from a corner store.
These green pills, yellow pills, blue pills, all of this ecstasy.
Yes, and the logos on them will vary. You know, you could have animal characters, fish characters.
So this looks like a heart.
Yeah, hearts are quite popular.
The love drug.
Yep.
From the pretty colored pills with cute logos to the name itself, ecstasy is a slyly marketed drug that kills.
Next on 16 by 9, a party drug laced with a lethal ingredient.
There are toxic chemicals in this pill that most people wouldn't flush down their toilets, let alone put into their body.
Around the time Cheryl McCormack died of an ecstasy overdose last December, Alberta was experiencing an epidemic of overdoses too. 20 deaths in just over a year. Staff Sergeant Mike Bosley of the Calgary Police Service.
With the toxicology, we had a bunch of information coming back that a number of cases seem to be associated to ecstasy overdoses that involve PMMA.
PMMA, a chemical police in Western Canada hadn't seen before. Drug makers started lacing it into pills without anyone knowing. On the street, they call PMMA Dr. Death because it kills. 32 people in Israel, 12 in Norway, and now PMMA is responsible for 21 deaths in Western Canada.
It really is significantly more lethal than other forms of ecstasy in it. We've seen a lot of deaths specifically associated to the PMMA related
More
ecstasy.
lethal than MDMA?
Both are extremely dangerous.
Yes.
You can die whether it's got PMMA in it or not. You don't know what you're getting in the pill.
PMMA is a substance that we have not seen previously in our ecstasy-related deaths because we were not looking for it.
When BC Chief Coroner Lisa Lapointe heard about the PMMA overdoses in Alberta, she took a look at the deaths back in BC and ordered new toxicology tests.
The toxicologist did a review of all of the 2011 ecstasy-related deaths to see if PMMA was present. And overall, we found PMMA present in 6 ecstasy-related deaths in 2011.
One of the overdoses was Shauna McCormack's sister, Cheryl.
She had the PMMA in her, and that's what killed her. And that's why the other girls were okay, because they took the same amount, but they didn't have that in theirs.
Police, like Scott Rintoul, point out, whether it's MDMA or PMMA, taking ecstasy is like playing Russian roulette.
PMMA may have been in those pills, and perhaps at the end of the day, the coroner may say that PMMA was a contributing factor to the death. But we've also had 11 deaths in this province of ecstasy alone.
Why put PMMA in what is otherwise believed to be an ecstasy pill?
Perhaps the chemists that produced it didn't have the money to buy the precursor chemicals needed to make ecstasy. That could have been one reason. Or the chemists felt more comfortable making PMMA than they did making MDMA. It just comes down to that.
We must be brutally honest about the poisonous toxicity of these chemicals.
This is Catherine Spanavello, a mother wrought with emotion, trying to raise awareness after losing her daughter Erin 4 years ago.
We must start talking about synthetic drugs. We've missed this as part of our information that we impart to kids, and we need to start the conversation.
A conversation Catherine wishes she'd had with her daughter before that day in July when police knocked on her door.
They asked to be let in, and in that interminable 2 minutes between going to the door to greet them and opening the door, my brain started to realize that something was very, very wrong.
They came in, and what did they say?
I'm not sure that I remember exactly, but I do know that I was made to understand that a tragedy had occurred. I don't think I understood right away that Erin was dead. I thought she was sick. And they helped me realize that she was gone. There are toxic chemicals in this pill that most average people wouldn't flush down their toilets, let alone put into their body.
Reaching people with her message is now Catherine's daily work, and that of Constable Ian McDonald, who's heading into schools, trying to spread the word about the dangers of this drug before people start using.
We want to let people know that what you're dealing with is not a social drug. it is potentially a death sentence for you. These things are chemical concoctions that are cooked up by individuals who simply want your money.
Your sister didn't see ecstasy as a dangerous drug.
Neither did I. I had no idea until any of this happened.
What do people your age need to know?
That ecstasy and MDMA is just as bad as doing heroin or crack cocaine. It's not any better. You can die from doing one, you can die from doing 10. You may get lucky once, but...
What do you miss most?
Everything. Her. Coming home and seeing her every day.
If you could have one more day, what would you do?
Tell her how much I love her and miss her.
Next on 16 by 9, virtual gambling has some very real losses.
Remorseful, guilty, sick, confused.